Now let's jump into Fluke or for real because we got a lot of people to talk about here. We're going to fly through this for you guys. First one, already mentioned him, Brian Robinson, 28.9 fantasy points. For me, he is taking over this job. Wes, this feels for real. What do you think?
You can't argue with 18 carries. I mean, you can't argue. 18 carries, 2 touchdowns, just a little bit in the receiving game, but it's going to be hard to ask for PPR volume from him when they've got such a great receiving core in Washington. But he nearly had 30 points, and that's really almost exclusively on the ground. Yeah. Brian Robinson's the real deal.
Yeah, no, he's legit. And that was against the Denver defense. That defense is good. That's a good defense. They are not somebody, they're not the Texans who you just run all over. That is a good defense, and he put on a show. For real, Brian Robinson, I buy in. Another guy that I think I'm buying in on is Zack Moss, man. And he is such a weird name to talk about here, but 20.7 fantasy points, 15 carries, only 18 yards. Is that true? Only 18 yards?
That can't be. Did I make a typo?
There might be a typo. I'm not sure. Was it 118? I don't know.
Let me look it up.
I read 18 yards, and I was like, how many touchdowns did he score?
I know, yeah, like 40 touchdowns.
Yeah.
No, I don't know how. 98 yards.
98. Two
somehow
of the
the 1 and the 9
numbers.
were.
Yeah, just flipped out there.
You should see our breakdown sometimes, Trollers. We got so many freaking numbers to look at here.
All over the place.
98 yards.
Zack Moss.
Rushing for Zack Moss.
15 carries, 98 yards, and a touchdown. Also, 4 catches on 4 targets for 19 yards. Listen, Anthony Richardson wasn't in the game for very long. Anthony Richardson had 2 rushing touchdowns before he left the game. So maybe this is the ceiling for Zack Moss, but no one else was really to be seen in this running back room. And if Jonathan Taylor doesn't come back, Zack Moss has this job locked up. So Zack Moss seems legit. If you picked him up on your waiver wire, just had to spend a little bit of fab to get him, you're feeling pretty good. Zack Moss is going to be pretty solid. Christian Kirk, after a 0-point week 1, joins T. Higgins to be just the bounce back week 2 guys, apparently, because you put up a goose egg in week 1 and has nearly 22 points in week 2. 11 catches on 14 targets for 110 yards. It's going to be tough to predict this Jaguars offense. I think the Jaguars offense this year is going to kind of be like Tyler Lockett's career. And I'll add Mike Williams to this too. If you got them, they're in your lineup, and you're gonna ride the high, or you're gonna go down in flames with them. Like it is going to be impossible to predict the games that these guys are gonna go off. Yeah. Trevor Lawrence is gonna figure out who he's feeling good with that day, and he's gonna go to him. 14 targets is legit. Christian Kirk, I hope you didn't drop him after week 1. I hope you kept him on your roster, because I'd feel comfortable running him as a flex play every week after a 14-target game, I think it's worth the risk, just because I feel like...
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Okay, no, I was just going to say, they paid him a bucket load of money whenever he came to Jacksonville. We were all like, wow, this dude just reset the market on wide receivers. I wondered if last week was fluky. It didn't feel like it, because it felt like Calvin Ridley was just going to be so dominant and just be so clearly the number 1 guy. I do believe he is clearly the number 1 guy, but Christian Kirk is going to have his, and so if you've got him, I think you got to lock him in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that someone came up to me and asked, like, dude, I feel so bad. I could have won if I started Christian Kirk. Would you have started Christian Kirk? And I was like, no, I wouldn't have started him after that week. He was like, oh, I feel so much better now. It's like, no, I would not start someone that got 1.3 points in their debut of this season. But just as you said, and what we've been saying so far in this episode, Jaguars offense is going to be a little more tricky to predict, but it does feel like Calvin Ridley is going to be the alpha on that offense. But overall, ups and downs for that Jags team.
Yeah, I'll just to add on to that real quick. I'll just say our graphic designer Brandon was like, "Oh man, should have started Puka," and I was like, "Oh, did you like who did you go with?" And he was like, "Oh, I went with T. Higgins," and I was like, "Oh, okay, well it's still a good week." And he was like, "Yeah, but I should have started him over AJ Brown and somebody else," and it was like, you can't. I don't know if you can look at your lineup that way. It's just tough. I do it. I find myself doing it too. I'm like, if only I started Nico Collins over Keenan Allen. Oh man, I would have had and Nico Collins over AJ Brown. Gosh, I'm such a doofus. Like, No, guys,
course.
like you can't
Obvious.
live a fantasy life like this. I mean, I know I still do. You probably still will. Don't beat yourself up about it though. This stuff happens. It's fantasy football. You know, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. You'll be all right. We'll make it through. Christian Kirk, I think it's for real. I think it's just it's Tyler Lockett-esque. That's how I feel.
Boom bust. Yeah, it's for real.
Yeah, he's a boom bust guy. James Cook. Oh, baby. James Cook, 19.9 fantasy points, 17 carries, 123 yards, 4 targets, 4 catches, 21 opportunities for Mr. James Cook, and he was a freaking animal, dude. I am so excited about James Cook. So good to see him doing what I believed he could do. Don't want to overreact. I know it's only week 2, but it's awesome to see him doing this. I will say, one thing to point out just about James Cook. The Bills got down inside the 5-yard line a couple times this week. James Cook is nowhere to be seen on the field. James Cook is not in those packages. It's a bummer. He might find his way into those packages at times. There might be certain plays inside the 5-yard line that they scheme up, that maybe a halfback, like a wheel route or something like that he's on there for. But James Cook, the touchdowns may not be there, but do not worry, because even without any touchdowns, still 20-point week. Lock him into the lineup. He is there for you. Freaking hype, man. I love James Cook so much. I love James Cook. You called it.
We're doing our headlines in the offseason of James Cook being top 15, and was thinking about it and was like, you know what? Print that headline. It looks like for real.
Yeah.
And you said let's not overreact, but after week 1, I pressed the panic button immediately on Najee Harris. And I ended up trading for James Cook and Elijah Moore, and I'm already feeling great. This is it. Without a touchdown, he gets 20 points. Sign me up. And
100%.
This is the conservative offense we were talking about for Buffalo. Look what happens.
Yeah. 17 carries, 4 catches. Josh Allen checking the ball down. Love it. Love to see it there. His teammate Gabe Davis had himself a good day too. 21.2 fantasy points, 6 catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. It feels Christian Kirky to me. It feels like if you got Gabe Davis, you got him probably pretty late, so you may not have to just ride with him, but it's going to be impossible to predict the weeks that he is going to do this. So if you're a Gabe Davis believer and you drafted him, you got to roll him out. Go for it. This is I don't want to call Fluke for real, but I just think we can label him boom bust. I think that is fair to say.
Absolutely.
So he is a guy that if
you
got him, you got to roll him out. Yeah, 100%. Drake London, hey, 18.7 fantasy points, scores himself a touchdown, 7 targets after just 1 target last week. I still think it's a fluke.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to take a lot
Fluke.
for us to believe that Drake London's it.
Yeah, they're just Bijan Robinson is the offense, and my goodness, Jonnu Smith had more catches than Kyle Pitts this week. So what is going on? What is going on? This is ridiculous. Mac Hollins was making highlight plays for this team. What are we doing here, Arthur Smith? All right, Rachaad White, 21.3 fantasy points, 17 carries, 73 yards, and a touchdown, 5 catches on 5 targets. He gets some work in the passing game pretty solidly. Fluke for real, Wes, because I want to hear what you have to say. I don't know where I stand on this, really.
Well, it's sustainable. That stat line is sustainable. 17 carries. That is a clear starting running back for what appears to be a solid team. They have a receiving threat with Mike Evans, and let's not forget Chris Godwin is there. And the rookie Trey Palmer is making some big-time plays as well. Baker Mayfield looks like he's playing at a level that can help this team win. They're 2-0. We'll see what happens when they're playing more formidable opponents. Yeah. But let me throw in one last thing for context. We have a lot of running backs that are injured right now. So, yes, for the sake of your team, Rachaad White is for real. Don't trade him to someone that needs a running back, like an Eckler owner or a Nick Chubb owner or a Saquon owner. Don't roll him. Don't let him go. Keep him. Don't try to get a great wide receiver in exchange. No, that's my take. It's for real, and don't let him go.
Yeah, it's for real. He is a starting running back in the NFL very clearly on a competent offense. So he is worth having in your lineup. I agree. Rachaad White is looking pretty good. Tyler Lockett, baby. 25.9 fantasy points, 2 touchdowns. It's for real.
Did we not say this?
If you didn't catch it last week, get that crap out of here. Tyler Lockett's for real. Come on. Come on, dude. CJ Stroud. Week 2's leading passer, C.J. Stroud. What on earth? 25.46 fantasy points, 47 passes, 30 completions, 384 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, had a fumble. And they supported some pretty solid guys, too. What do we think? This Texans offense, Nico Collins, 27.6 fantasy points, gets in the end zone, has 7 catches. Tank Dell, 20.2 fantasy points, 7 catches, 72 yards and a touchdown. My goodness. I mean, I don't know if CJ Stroud is for real, but Nico Collins is for real. Nico Collins is for real in my book. I think this is 2 weeks in a row now where he had 11 targets in week 1. 20 targets so far in the first 2 weeks. Man.
And Nico is picking up where he left off with Houston last year. At the end of the season, he was looking like a legitimate playoff flex option. He's playing like a reliable wide receiver for this rookie quarterback. Now, I'm going to push back on C.J. Stroud. No disrespect. I'm not going to say that he's not for real for fantasy. But I'm going to push back and say that it was a blowout. It was a blowout game. They were up big. It was like 30-10 at some point. And Anthony Richardson went out before halftime. So I'm going to push back and say that super great 384-yard performance is because of a blowout. And I think in other situations you'd see the ground game a little more involved. So I think that is the most points C.J. Stroud will score in a single game all year. But the wide receivers, yes, I'm buying in to Collins and Dell for real.
Yeah, for real. For real, for sure. Listen, George Pickens, 22.7 fantasy points, 4 catches, 10 targets, 127 yards and a touchdown. Had maybe the highlight of the game last night there. And while Deontay Johnson's out, maybe for real, 10 targets is pretty legit. Only 4 catches. One of them was like the 70-yard touchdown or whatever it was. So a lot of the production came on one play. But Browns are a solid opponent, and they weren't doing a whole lot there. But for Pickens to get 10 targets, it does seem like he is going to be the go-to here while Deontay Johnson is out. So Pickett, we'll look for Pickens. And if you drafted Pickens, you're feeling pretty good right now. He's going to be solid for at least another 4 weeks here while Deontay Johnson is out. I think it's for real with an asterisk until Deontay Johnson returns, and then we got to see. So that's what I'm feeling.
I have nothing to add. You're spot on.
Great. Nailed it. Boom. Double down.
Nailed it.
Raheem Mostert, 25.7 fantasy points. We talked about it. The Dolphins ended up having to run the football in this game. Bill Belichick opened up the lanes for him because he was trying to stop this electric duo or trio. I'll add even Jaylen Waddle in there. Raheem Mostert, 25.7, 18 carries, 121 yards, and 2 touchdowns. What I take away from this, I think this is for real because I think I'm willing to say he's the dude. That's what I think. He's the dude. There's not. Savon Ahmed was involved. He got hurt. Devon Achane got like 2 opportunities when Savon Ahmed got hurt. Mostert was the guy. He was the guy. I mean, listen. You don't get 18 carries and not be impactful for your team and have trust from your coach and stuff like that. So Raheem Mostert is a solid roll him out continually. We'll have to reevaluate when Jeff Wilson comes back, but that's what I'm saying for real here on Raheem Mostert.
And you take away that 40-yard touchdown, that's about 10 points off of his total. That's still 15 points without the 40-yard touchdown.
It's not a 15-point game. Yeah.
And again, this is with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle on that offense. And Tua is, I think, 285 yards away from having 1,000 passing yards already on the season. If this is what Raheem Mostert can do with a passing offense like that, what a great find in drafts, because it felt confusing We both thought that Devon Chain was going to be more involved. There's still so much football left to go. This Mike McDaniel is wickedly creative for that offense, so we'll see what happens with A-Chain. But for now, keep rolling out Mostert, baby. It's working, and he's doing great.
Yeah.
Back-to-back weeks with a touchdown.
Yeah, love it. Loving Mostert a lot here. A few Broncos to talk about. Russell Wilson, 31.9 fantasy points. Marvin Mims, 20.3 fantasy points. And Brandon Johnson, 20.6 fantasy points. Ready? Sing the song with me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fluke, fluke, fluke.
Fluke,
there you
fluke,
go. That's the song.
Fluke, fluke, fluke.
Yeah, that's the whole song. Fluke, fluke, fluke. All three of these guys are flukes. If you've got somebody who's got Justin Fields and you can sell him, you can sell him Russell Wilson. I don't know if you listen, guys. If you didn't watch the game and you were just looking at the fantasy score, Russell Wilson looked like garbage in this game. Russell Wilson looked terrible. He looked so bad. So bad. He had a 50-yard Hail Mary touchdown, and then it was like a 70-yard just go route touchdown to Marvin Mims. Like over half his yards came on 2 plays here, guys, and 2 of his touchdowns. He played, take those 2 plays away. I know people are like, oh yeah, of course if you take the 2 best plays away, then he's going to do bad. No, listen, right. Russell Wilson was so bad. 2 plays here, you take those away. He's having like a 10-point game or something like that. He had like 150 yards and a touchdown. Like that's it. Oh man, this Broncos offense, I really wanted Sean Payton to fix them, and it doesn't look like it's going to happen through 2 weeks. I hope things turn around. I really do. I really like Russell Wilson, man. I think he's a great guy. I think he's a fantastic NFL player in the past. But this Broncos offense is not what we want it to be. Again. So, fluke. Move on. If you can sell Russell Wilson, sell him. There you go. Skyy Moore, 16 points. 4 targets, 3 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. Fluke. That's a fluke. There you go. Baby. Travis Kelce is the only guy to focus on there.
The limit there.
Yeah, the sky's the limit, and suddenly we're flying at negative 40,000 feet. There you go. That's what's going on here. Josh Reynolds, 23.6 fantasy points. That's something to look at here. 5 catches, 2 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown last week, too.
I got it.
Go for it, Wes. I mean, I feel a certain way until something happens. But go ahead.
Exactly. Until Jameson Williams is back, you can line up Josh Reynolds in your flex option, or maybe wide receiver too if things are looking bad in matchups. But it's a name we noticed in the opening kickoff to this season against the Chiefs. Josh Reynolds looked pretty good. He's a good player, but these numbers will not be sustainable as soon as Jameson Williams is back because he's good. I don't think people know how good Jameson Williams is because he's missed the first half of both his seasons so far. Yeah. But he's great. He's going to be part of that team. So enjoy Reynolds while you can. I strongly encourage you to sell him high if you have him.
Yeah.
Strongly encourage you.
Definitely. Last couple here. A couple of Cardinals. 17.4 fantasy points for Marquise Brown and 27.2 for Josh Doubs. Fluke, I think his team is bad. I think his team is really bad. And Marquise Brown was encouraging. 10 targets is encouraging. I think maybe this is his ceiling. So if you're a little worried, maybe sell if you can. But I'm not. I have Marquise Brown in a league. And I had to play him because I had Cam Akers. And I wasn't excited. And I was relieved at the outcome. So I'm going to be actively looking to not have to keep Marquise Brown in my lineup. That's kind of where I'm at here. If you can sell him, sell. Yeah. That's how I feel, Wes. I don't know if you feel Marquise Brown was I think he was
I really liked him.
My guy. I don't know. We both were so high on him, and then as we got closer to the season, we were like, oh, this Cardinals team is gonna suck. This team is gonna be so bad.
If there's ever anyone that will end up on the Fluker for Real segment in the good category as we close out the good category, Marquise Brown will end up here again, but He will not be anything more than a flex option. The only starting Cardinal right now is going to be James Conner until further notice.
Yeah. 100%. There you go. Last guy here, Daniel Jones. Man, whew, what a game. That was pretty incredible to watch the Giants come back there. Listen, Daniel Jones, 34.7 fantasy points, 321 yards, and 2 touchdowns. An interception, but outside a rushing touchdown as well. Guys, this all came, like, his interception. In the first half, he had, like, 60 yards passing and an interception. That was pretty much it. Like, he had a fantastic game in the second half of this game. Now, it was the Cardinals. Not a great team to go up against, and the comeback was very impressive. Very impressive comeback. I applaud you, New York Giants. I applaud you, Brian Daboll. Thank you for getting Darren Waller involved a little bit. Would have loved to see him get in the end zone. We'll work on that next week. Thursday night's coming. Fluke. That's all I got. Fluke. That's what I got to say.
The only thing that I like is the rushing stats without Saquon.
Right. Yes, so the next 3 weeks are going to be very interesting to watch here. We could see Thursday night he comes out and does another 60 for a touchdown against the Niners because he can't pass to anybody. So
the only reason, not the only, but the biggest reason you and I did not include Daniel Jones in our top 10 rankings, even though he was top 10 last year, is because Saquon is going to take away the rushing upside that Daniel Jones has. Right. And Daniel Jones is not an amazing passer. But he literally took the game and did it all himself.
Yeah.
I unfortunately, I agree. I think it is a fluke. But we will talk about Daniel Jones in our Thursday night must risky don't starts.
100%. And I do, listen, I have been talking about Daniel Jones a lot as a poor player. I want to give him his credit. He had an unbelievable second half performance in this game. He made some great passes. He figured out who his deep threat target was with Jalen Hyatt. Like these guys, it was a very impressive second half for Daniel Jones. I just wonder if it's going to be sustainable, if it's going to keep up. It was the Cardinals. We saw him against a really good defense in week 1, and it was terrible. We're going to see him against a really good defense on Thursday night for week 3. We will see what's going to happen then, and we will be talking more about him later on. So it's going to be an interesting thing to watch here. Let's fly through the bad guys here real quick because it's never fun to talk about. But Jamar Chase, 8.1 fantasy points. Listen, we already said it. Fluke. He will find his way. 8 targets is still 8 targets. The Ravens' defense was hurt, and they still played very good defense on Jamar Chase. So he was a focal point for them. I call Fluke. Something I sadly call for real on. Najee Harris. 5.3 fantasy points. Is there a chance it's just 2 good defenses in a row? Is there a chance? Like, I hope there is, but also...
No. No. If Jaylen Warren is walking away with twice as many points again, and Jaylen Warren's getting like 45% snap count, this is for real. And I feel relieved I traded him away already.
So sad. I saw a tweet that somebody was like, man, I've tried really hard to stay on the train for a long time, but Najee Harris is bad. Najee Harris. That was my concern.
Can we get Ben Roethlisberger back?
Right. That's what I was about to bring up. Is that was my concern last year, was that, hey, Ben Roethlisberger was in such bad shape his final year of his career that Najee Harris was just hyper targeted. It was Najee Harris, or if Najee Harris wasn't available, it was Deontay Johnson. That was it. That was the offensive game plan in Ben Roethlisberger's final year. And man, all I can think about is if the Miami Dolphins drafted Najee Harris, he'd be having such a better fantasy career. That's all I can think about. I'm still salty. We didn't do it that time.
Yeah, I was upset. He looked slow in that that end around. He copied Jerome Ford's run that ended up going 70 yards.
Right.
Najee Harris tried to copy it, and he looked like his feet were made of lead.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened.
best play of the night, and it was like, oh man, you don't look good, buddy. This is a little rough here. Najee Harris, this is for real, sadly. Josh Jacobs, 9.9 fantasy points, 9 carries. He had -2 rushing yards, so call it a win for yourself that he got 9.9 fantasy points. But the game script probably wasn't favoring him too much for them to be running the football this game. Davante Adams also went out, so it wasn't like they were being very competitive offensively. 5 catches on 6 targets for 51 yards is still the encouraging sign for me. I'm not really panicking on Josh Jacobs. It isn't exactly what we planned on, but Wes, actually, this isn't exactly what the consensus planned on, but Wes, this is what you and I planned on. We both did not have Josh Jacobs in our top 10. He was around 15 or 16 for me. I'm not sure exactly where he was for you. He was not a guy that I was like, yep, he's going to run it back here with 1,700 all-purpose, and he's going to just absolutely blow it out of the water. That was not the case in either of our eyes. I think he'll have better days, though. I think 9.9 fantasy points is... I think he did something similar to this in week 1. Maybe this is the floor. Maybe this is the floor for Josh Jacobs is around 10 points. That's probably not what you're hoping for a guy you drafted at the end of the second round. So you're probably disappointed, but I'm going to say this probably for real because this is probably where he's going to land around in my eyes for most performances. And this was even without Jacoby Myers. They were missing 2 of their best, Davante Adams for part of the game and Jacoby Myers for the whole game. And he's still just 9.9 fantasy points. So not great and not what you want from Josh Jacobs if you drafted him, for sure. So
yeah, it's just adding on to what you said. The reason we call this for real is because we both barely have him in our top 15, if at all, because we saw this happening. We predicted this was going to be the situation. So this stat line is a fluke, but these underwhelming performances for a second-round player is for real. He's not going to. He's barely going to be. He's not top 10 for sure.
Right.
No,
100%. 100%. Jaylen Waddle, 12.4 fantasy points, had a fantastic catch down the sideline. This is a fluke. I mean, listen, I know you might be thinking, oh man, 2 weeks in a row from Waddle not having a touchdown, not having a big game, a big 20-point game. Hold strong, all right? Take a deep breath, relax. We saw Jaylen Waddle had 12.4, Tyreek Hill only had 15. Okay, so in retrospect, when we look at it, this passing game for this Dolphins offense was not running because the Dolphins were having to run the football. Bill Belichick was shutting down the pass a little bit. So relax. Jaylen Waddle will be fine. He was probably accurately drafted, but you probably have higher expectations because of what he was able to do in a lot of games last year. He'll have those games. He'll have his 30-point games. Don't worry about it. It'll all be okay.
He's still 13th most receiving yards in the NFL. So he has over 170 yards. So
yeah, he's fine, guys.
You're okay.
Joshua Kelley, somebody we got to just talk about real quick. 3.9 fantasy points, 13 carries, 39 yards. Not super efficient, but that's okay. The Titans' run defense is very good. What concerned me was the one target. Wes, you and I talked about it, and we said he's not a huge PPR guy, but he's taking over for Eckler, so we'll probably hope that he sees that role. Nope. Those targets went to Keenan Allen. It's Joshua Kelley is still worth a flex play if Austin Eckler continues to be out, but when Eckler comes back, that standalone value we talked about, I don't know if that's going to be the case. I don't think that is. I think his week 1 performance was more a product of the Miami Dolphins defense's first regular season action under Vic Fangio and getting their feet wet. And then because in week 2, the Dolphins' run defense was pretty solid. So Josh Kelley, standalone value probably isn't there. But if he continues to be the guy, if Eckler continues to be out, he is still worth the flex play. I know 3.9 isn't super appetizing, but in my opinion, he is still worth being in rosters.
Don't drop him for sure, especially with Eckler's injury status and with the other running backs that are injured. Don't drop him. Don't give your opponent a chance to have a starting running back in this situation. Yeah, but it's disappointing to see the lack of PPR opportunity. That caught me by surprise. I thought there would be something there. He did not slide into the Eckler shoes in the way we thought he would.
No, he didn't. And just off that real quick, we haven't talked about him yet. Chargers offense and Kellen Moore. I know you lost. Thank you for letting Justin Herbert throw the football down the field. Sincerely, fantasy managers everywhere. Because my goodness, like it was just in week 1 we thought, is Joe Lombardi still calling plays? He is just throwing screen passes and 5-yard outs. What are we doing here? Got to throw the ball down the field.
You know which team Joe Lombardi is calling plays for now? The Broncos.
Oh, let me think of a bad team. Oh, there you go. Yeah, you nailed it. There you go.
The Broncos.
Joe Lombardi's like,
how about that?
Joe Lombardi's like, yeah, drew up that Hail Mary perfectly, guys. Yeah, I got it. Yeah, don't worry about it. I got that.
Yeah.
It's all good. Yeah, It's all good. Listen, the new receiver to join the 0-point rotation for the Jaguars, Zay Jones. 0 points, 0 catches, 6 targets. This whole team is boom or bust. Good luck. That's what I got to say. That's all I got. That's all I got. There you go. Even Tank Bigsby, 0 points. My goodness, what are we doing here? Travis Etienne, 6.2 fantasy points. This is fluky. He will be fine. 6.2 is not anything to worry about. He had a fantastic week 1. I believe that is closer to where he will finish weekly than 6.2 fantasy points. There wasn't competition from Tank Bigsby. It was just not the day for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I don't believe they scored a touchdown. I do not believe they scored a touchdown. I believe it was field goals the entire time. I could be wrong on that, but I'm
no, you're
fairly
correct.
certain that was how that went. Okay, there you go. Javonte Williams, 7.8 fantasy points. I'm going to call Fluke on this. It felt like a weird game. It wasn't like he was losing out to Samaje Perine. I know he got a touchdown vultured by Jaleel McLaughlin, the rookie. I mean, maybe if that goes Williams' way, it's.
I'm worried.
You know, I'm worried in respect to what I know he can be. I'm not disappointed because of where we drafted him. I think that's where I'm at with this. Is that it's like we didn't have to spend a high pick on him, and he's a running back for an NFL team that's getting 15 opportunities. I think he will be okay. I think this is something that...
Good point.
Sean Payton is a running back whisperer, per se, and so, I don't know. We'll see what happens here. Romeo Doubs, 5 points. Oh, for real? I guess? Like, I don't know what's going on here. This is just... I think it's going to be a guess with this Packers offense every week, too. I mean, I thought he was going to have a great day with no Aaron Jones, with no Christian Watson. And they're going to Dontavion Wicks and Jaden, like rookies. And it's like, well, all right.
Yeah.
And maybe AJ Terrell is a good corner, but it may not, we may not be able to call out which Packers are going to do well outside of
until they all play together, at least.
Right. Precisely. Oh, man. Hey, this guy right here combined put up 1.1. Oh, no, sorry. That's 2 players. The New York Jets running backs here scored 1.1 collective fantasy points. Oh, boy. Okay. So it's the Cowboys, so we get it, but also not great, and Breece Hall is not happy about it. He took to social media. I'm not sure if you saw this. His post-game reports were like, they were talking about why the running game was struggling to get going. And he was like, well, I touched the ball 4 times, so that's why we struggled. And it was like,
he's not wrong.
Call your shot there, dude. Yeah, no, he's not wrong. Listen, he broke off an 85-yard run on like a dive, guys. Like you got to get him the football more. Dalvin, I think this is fluky. Dalvin Cook, this is his 2nd straight week of not a great performance. I think Breece Hall is the one to own, which is exciting to say, but I think it's gonna be tough goings for some of these Jets players, man. And it's so disappointing to see this have happened. But
yeah,
better days to come for Breece Hall. Dalvin Cook, obviously, it's hard to do worse than 0.2 points, but I'm not excited to be rolling out Dalvin Cook. Last couple guys here, I promise. Tyler Allgeier, 4.8 points, 16 carries. Listen, he didn't get his 2 touchdowns. Had he gotten his 2 touchdowns, he's got like a 17-point day. I think I'm still fine rolling him out. We said this is going to, the further down the road we get, the more Bijan Robinson is going to take over. We saw that in full swing. Bijan Robinson was awesome in week 2.
Yep.
Tyler Allgeier, I think, is still, you can roll him out as a flex play. 16 carries for a backup running back is still something that is, I think, worth giving an opportunity to. But if we come back next week and it's like, yeah, Tyler Allgeier had 13 carries for 30 yards and that was it, it's going to be like, oh, well, all right, then, yeah, no, it's Bijan time completely, and take Tyler Allgeier out of your lineup.
It's shifting that way already. In week 1, Bijan 63% snap count, Allgeier 56% snap count. Week 2, Bijan 72%, Allgeier 44%. It's already swinging that way. So in the next couple of weeks, if Algier's not getting in the end zone, then it'll be time to call this for real. But for now, we're willing to wait another week or two to see what may happen with him. But it's a lot of carries
100%.
still.
Yeah, 16 carries is still plenty here. Dameon Pierce, 5.5 points. I'm calling Fluke. It was a hard day on the ground for Dameon Pierce. I read something that Dameon Pierce had... I'm not even kidding you. This is real. Dameon Pierce, 15 carries for 31 yards. Dameon Pierce had 38 yards after contact in week 2. He was getting eaten up in the backfield so much that he literally he had more yards after contact than total rushing yards, because he was getting grabbed at the 5-yard line and getting back to 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and he was getting back to the line of scrimmage. Like, it was just absurd for this run game, and we saw that happen with the passing game. The passing game had a good fantasy day. Run game did not. I'm gonna call Fluke here. Dameon Pierce still is the guy. He's still the guy for an offense. Not a great one, but he's still the guy. That's where I'm at on Dameon Pierce. Wes, what do you think?
I wasn't high on him going into the season, so I'm more inclined to say this is for real. But given that stat you just said, makes me more hopeful that in circumstances based on the defense that he could pull out 15 points. But
yeah,
it's still a rookie offense. It's just a rookie quarterback, but it's a rookie offense in my eyes because of that.
Yep.
So,
yeah. Last guy here, Kendrick Bourne, 6.8 fantasy points. I'm going to call for real on this. Devontae Parker was not playing last week. He was playing in week 2, and he saw plenty of targets, and Hunter Henry is still the pass catcher to own in this offense. That's it for Fluke or for real.